let's get to today's dig. We'll start it out with a quick video. I'm going to play 6 minutes of this video, and then I'm going to read an article about this. This is the reason why this came up is because I had gone on through social and was looking around, and there was a lot of people complaining about Black Panther the movie, saying not really the movie itself, but saying that McDonald's had gone woke by giving out Black Panther toys.
The toys, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they were also they were posting
Not
a lot
Disney
of stuff.
being woke. Didn't they just agree to shut down in Florida or something? Like, remember that? Remember there was like a big controversy in Florida over like the trans kids like just 2 months ago when they were like supposedly anti-woke.
Yeah, Disney's not a woke company. They do a couple things that might be considered woke, but they have a long bad history.
Is it woke or is it public image consultation? Like, do you have a press? Yeah.
As a former employee at the Walt Disney Company, I can tell you it is not woke. That they are exactly as Anna said, they are a public image corporation.
What did you do at Disney?
Oh man, what didn't I do at Disney? I worked at Pirates of the Caribbean. I did a Disney college program, which is a college internship where I moved to Walt Disney World and lived in Florida and Orlando. And I worked at Pirates of the Caribbean. And then from there, it was, I'm just a lifelong Disney fan. So I got obsessed and dragged into the life. So I worked at the railroad as a conductor on the railroad. And then ultimately, I did a professional internship and became a guest relations special activities tour guide. So we are go around with rich people.
We're somewhat related then, I guess. Yeah. In fact, let me grab the picture. I'll show you real quick. So give me talk amongst yourselves for 45 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I have
45 seconds too, because I need to go make some tea. Y'all can't see me on mute, but I'm gonna cough for long.
Like, my family has annual passes to Disneyland right now.
Oh, really? That's super cool. Wait, you said Disney World or Disneyland?
Disneyland. My sister works
Cali.
at Disney World still. She is a HR. She works in human resources at Disney. And they just had a leadership summit, and she sent me pictures yesterday that Magic Johnson was there giving an inspirational leadership speech to the rest of them.
Come on,
I was
Magic.
a little bit jealous.
I really like Magic Johnson like a lot. I think he's such a
man.
fantastic celebrity. Like,
how many Disneys around the world have you been to?
I've only been to Disneyland and Disney World.
They do move you around. They do move you around a lot, though.
My wife and I, our first, so our honeymoon, we went on a Disney cruise, and then for our first anniversary, we went on a Disney cruise, and it was my idea that we were going to do a Disney cruise every anniversary. But then on the second trip, my daughter was conceived, and we haven't been on once.
So it was a good trip then.
It was a good trip, yeah.
Yeah, but before I show you what I was going to show you, the thing with Disney, like Disney has a long history of discrimination, of racism, of playing in politics, of supporting GOP initiatives. They've look at all of their shows. Like they're I've got a lot of problems with Disney, right? Like their characterization of dads on a lot of their shows is like the mom is always super cute, super smart. The dad's a fucking buffoon. He's kind of a goofball. You know what I mean? The kids are smarter than the parents. And obviously these shows are targeted at kids, right? So they're showing the kids what the kids should be. There was hardly ever any representation of people of color. They had a few shows. They had Jet Jackson and, The Proud Family and stuff like that.
Smart guy. Smart guy.
Smart guy. It was Smart Guy. Was that Disney or was that ABC?
That's Disney.
That was on Disney. Okay, but and then like about
Well, ABC
the
is
time
owned
about the time my daughters were little, they started to put like again Proud Family and That's So Raven, and he started to get a few more characters, and obviously they've always stayed far away from LGBT stuff, but they hired, and this will tie into what I'll I was going to say. I just want to get my thought out before I show this. Like they've always hired a lot of gay guys to play their character actors inside of the parks and stuff like that. You'll see one in a second. He'll get doxxed. But even though I have no idea who this person is, but but then like Disney, like with what was it, Song of the South, Zippity Doo Dah, Zippity A, like not an overtly racist movie on purpose, I think, but I like to think the best of people, but so much subtle and implicit racism inside of that movie, just of bad caricatures and stereotypes and stuff like that, that they're like, oh, well, these things are just totally normal because that's just the way that black people act. No, it's not. That's the way that fucking the caricature of black people in the South was. And you made cartoon characters just like Bugs Bunny did. This isn't like only Disney. Bugs Bunny had a lot of like blackface and,
the Tex Avery,
the Jigaboo stuff and the fucking Black Sambo stuff,
Sambo, and
Brute, and all those caricatures, like with the big red lips and all that type of stuff. And like they've got a long history of that stuff. Well, I've heard stuff that like Walt Disney was, a very bigoted guy, and like they recast actors in movies that were supposed to be black, that and then but now because the Little Mermaid, a fictional character that is literally made up, they made her black. And because they made a Black Panther movie, and because Star Wars had a blink and you miss it gay kiss, like literally a blink and you miss it kiss at the end of episode 9. People are like, oh, and Buzz Lightyear has like a gay character in it that's, again, blink and you miss it. And it's and
But
and
those
like
people press pause when they see that.
Yeah, but it's
they press pause and make it longer than it is.
They're pretending that there was a bedroom scene.
And here's the thing: is that representation matters.
Right.
Representation matters.
Weird.
And people don't want to see the non-majority norm represented. But guess what? Representation reduces suicide rates. Representation increases people's self-esteem. Representation reduces dropout rates. You know why? Because then people see people like them, so they don't feel alone. They don't feel certain ways. They don't lose hope. They don't get despondent. They don't think something is wrong with them. So they go on and produce in life.
Yeah. Well, I think like first of all, you gotta like separate a company from its like former owner. But even then, like there's it's hard with like historical like people in history, because like I think of like some examples that are contrary
Hellbound.
I think like the examples that are contrary to the like narrative of like Floyd Norman, who was like one of the first black cartoonists that was hired by Walt Disney in 1935 of all years. And it's hard with history. It's hard to, I think we look at history through like the lens of today, which is like some of the stuff where like women could only be like ink and paint girls, and they couldn't actually be full blown artists. It's just like some of it is like a victim of the time, right? Like the anti-Semitism of like that Walt Disney's like associated with has to do with like his time in front of the anti-American League and the McCarthyism that swept through in the 50s that was like literally everywhere, because Hollywood, they wanted to blackball the Jews, and um,
Yeah, all the Jewish writers and actors changed their names to different names.
Mhm.
yeah. So it's hard to like say definitively is this person like I wouldn't look at historical characters from the lens of today. Like even like Abraham Lincoln, he didn't want to free the Jews.
Yeah,
I have
You
or
can't
he
do
didn't
that.
want to free the slaves.
He wouldn't have
like,
wanted to free the Jews either, but
God, the Jews, yeah. But it's just hard to do, and
I've said
Yeah.
a lot of times, Lincoln, if Lincoln were alive today and had his exact same views, he'd be to the right of Trump. But for his day, he was very progressive,
yeah.
right?
I actually read a biography about him and just like what type of person he was. And people describe him as like such this serious guy, but it sounds like he was, excuse my French, but like a jokester, like class clown kind of guy, and also like just an asshole, like to the point where like he was able to take advantage of the time by just going around like debating people because people might not show up to the debates and they might not see it if he was like bad at it. So he just used to practice on like folks until he got like to be better and sharper at it. But also as far as his political views, like his thoughts about slavery really had nothing to do with slavery itself, but more of just, an economic situation that could be addressed to bring the North and South together.
The good of the Union has always been like the good of the country has always been the bullshit that these people have talked about. But
And it's crazy because
Yeah.
it never was about slavery. I'm like, if we could
What do you
just
got
stop
there?
that lie.
you got some cereal? Oh, that's some tea.
Oh, this is tea.
Tea,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
saying I'm getting my, the weather's starting to change. I'm starting to get a little man voice.
Ooh, gender affirming therapy is needed. But as I was saying about Disney though, the because we'll get to the dig here, there was a reason why Disney came up, and like because as I was oh shit, I totally forgot. Disney
Picture, yeah, the picture.
I said we're related. That's the wife
Is that
was
Princess? Who is that?
that's
Pocahontas?
that is my wife when she was 19.
Aw, she's so pretty.
When she was Pocahontas at Disneyland.
Aw, she's
So
beautiful.
Well, no, she was friends with Pocahontas at Disneyland.
What do you mean? What does that mean? I don't get it.
That's
Is that
that's
Disney talk?
It's Disney speak because there's only one Pocahontas, and it's the actual Pocahontas.
Oh, that's the okay.
But
I
a
see.
person could
Okay.
be friends with Pocahontas, which
Yeah.
means
Aren't we all friends with Pocahontas?
that they substitute for one another.
Aren't we all friends
Yeah.
with Pocahontas? How do you distinguish who we're talking about?
Technically, I guess we're all friends with Pocahontas, but it's like cast
Calling
members.
Pocahontas
speak.
a hoe.
Well, and also in the Pocahontas,
Haas,
like
log out.
all the
Log
all the white people that they use to play the Pocahontas characters, and then they change the story. But the thing I was going to go to is like that Twitter, or I'm sorry, Truth Social was talking about Black Panther, and they were like, remember, because there was this thing, and because I Googled Black Panther because I was reading these memes about like the toys at McDonald's. Then they were talking, and it happens to be election day also. There was a lot of tweets on Black Panther that came up talking about Black Panther, the group.
Oh boy,
that had to do with the 2008 poll interference, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also the 1967 siege, as they call it, of the Capitol building, and and then I thought about, I'm like, you know what? Nobody knows that fucking history, and that's important history. I know Haas knows it. I'm sure Anna and Lauren know it, but a lot of just general people don't know that history. They'll be like, well, they stormed the Capitol with guns. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play a 6-minute video of this from YouTube, from the Sacramento Bee. Then I'm going to read the dig, which is from most of it's from HuffPo. It's a short one, so altogether this will only be about 10 minutes total, and then I'll let these guys talk. So let's start by sharing the screen here. And again, there's it's just under 6 minutes that I'm going to share here on this particular video. So let's do that. All right, here we go. The sound's a little off on this, so.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, the sound chops in and out, so it's not me, it's the video.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Are we under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? Place him under arrest. Am I under arrest? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest. I'm telling you to take your hands off me. Take your hands off me. Oh, I'm telling you to take.
Look at that framing.
How many you got? Just follow me. Second off. What you doing, man? Wait a minute,
The people in this court and the people in the legislature have not been acting like human beings. They put trumped up charges of conspiracy and felonies on everyone who went in to exercise a constitutional right and said they had no right to bear arms in a public place. The California Penal Code section 12020 through 12027, and also the Second Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property. And the legislature, I talked to Morford last night, and he said the legislature has made certain rules that are superior to the United States Constitution and also superior to the statutory law of California, and that is that they made a rule that no one could walk on their property with a weapon. I'm saying this is a bold contradiction, and also Morford is alive.
And the big stick. Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned for. And what are you doing removing people's property without due process of law? If I'm under arrest, I'll come. If I'm not, don't put your hands on me. Is this the way the racist government works? Don't let a man exercise his constitutional rights? If my sweater's written, you will get. I'd like to make a statement now with this respect. Statement of the Black Panther Party for self-defense on the Mulford Act now pending before the California legislature. The Black Panther Party for self-defense calls upon the American people in general and the black people in particular to take full note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people. At the same time that the American government is waging a racist war of genocide in Vietnam, the concentration camps in which Japanese Americans were interned during World War II are being renovated and expanded. Since America has historically reserved the most barbaric treatment for non-white people, we are forced to conclude that these concentration camps are being prepared for black people who are determined to gain their freedom by any means necessary. The enslavement of black people from the very beginning of this country, the genocide practiced on the American Indians, and the confining of the survivors on reservations, the savage lynching of thousands of black men and women, the dropping of atomic bombs on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and now the cowardly massacre in Vietnam. All the power structure of America has won. Repression, genocide.
This is the end here. There's one more statement that I think is interesting that I'll leave in. Jump to that.
Ridiculous way to try and solve the problems that have to be solved among people of goodwill, and there's certainly nothing that can be done in the line of goodwill when Americans have guns with even the implied idea that those guns might be directed against other Americans. But I would think that some of the bills that have been suggested, such as not carrying a loaded weapon on a city street or in town, this might certainly be a good one. There is absolutely no reason why out on the street today civilians should be carrying a loaded weapon.
How interesting, Reagan, that you would say such a thing.
Yeah,
so
really.
I had to leave in that Reagan part. So let me read this real quick here, and then I'll shut up for the most part and let you guys go. Again, most of this is from HuffPo. An article by Nick Wing. Usually I write the dig. In this case, I didn't really need to because this was perfect. The nation's response when a black militia group occupied a government building. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to read the stuff that I wrote. I'm just going to read this actual article and just share it because it was, and this is written well before Trump. So there is so it's unwoke. Okay. Actually, I know what I can't share that. Oh, can I? Yeah, I can share that. Here, let me share this. It'll be a little bit weird for a second here as you see this, but all right, there we go. Now you should be able to see it. So again, this is by Nick. This is from January 6, 2016. When our militias seized the government building in Burns, Oregon on Saturday, and actually I'll tell you what, we'll let maybe Haas likes to read this stuff too. I'll make it a little bit bigger. On Saturday, stating their willingness to kill and be killed and promising to stay for years. The official response was cautious and restrained. Now, what he's talking about here is what happened in 2016 in Burns, Oregon. This is when the white militia went into the state building there, and we're saying we're willing to kill and be killed, and we'll stay for years in order to get right-wing policy adapted. And then many onlookers wondered whether this would still be the case if the militants were people of color instead of white people. If you're not familiar with the history of protests in the U.S., you might not know that an armed occupation of government buildings hasn't always been just for white guys. May 2nd, 1967, 30 Black Panthers walked into the California State Capitol building, toting rifles and shotguns and quickly garnering national headlines. To be clear, there are a world of differences between the Panthers demonstration and what's happening in Oregon now. Of course, this is back then. This was 8 years ago. This is an 8-year-old article. Although it's noteworthy that you have to go back to 67 to find an example of black activists doing something even close. The two groups employed different tactics, fought for different causes, and predictably had different reactions. Okay. So I'm going to skip a little bit here. There's a photo there. This is Eddie Murphy here.
Wow.
Not one laugh. Okay. He does kind of look like Eddie Murphy. The October 19th.
I thought you was being for real. I'm like, he's never going to age.
Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. Bobby Seale, by the way, is a fucking fascinating person. If you've ever heard him speak.
God, he almost became mayor of Oakland.
Did he? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he ran for mayor and came in second.
Oh, wow. So they formed the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense as a small community organization based in Oakland. Its members, including the 30 who would travel to Sacramento, believed Black Americans should exercise their constitutional right to defend themselves against an oppressive government. At the time, California lawmakers were trying to strip them of that right, and the Panthers wanted to tell the U.S. people they found it unacceptable. Among other things, the Black Panthers' agenda involved taking up arms and patrolling their communities to protect against rampant racism in policing. And that's what they did in the first few months of the party's existence, carrying guns openly in compliance with California law, driving around neighborhoods, observing arrests and other law enforcement activity. No cell phone cameras back then. Effectively policing the police. We know now that people don't like that because we see all the cell phone cameras getting yelled at. Anyway, Newton was even known for packing a law book alongside his rifle that he'd recite from when informing an officer that a civilian's rights were being violated. Haas, if you would like, you can. You want to pick it up from there?
On the patrols.
Yeah.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
All righty. The patrols weren't meant to encourage violence. The Panthers were committed to using force only if it was used against them. And at first, their mere presence appeared to be working as a check on abusive policing. But the Panthers' willful assertion of their rights, like the day Newton reportedly stood up to a cop in front of a crowd of black onlookers, was unacceptable to white authority figures who come to expect complete deference from black communities and who were happy to use fear and force to extract it. Don Mulford, a GOP assemblyman who represented Oakland, responded to the Black Panther police patrols in 1967 with a bill to strip Californians of the right to openly carry firearms. Nobody tried to stop the 30 Black Panthers, 24 men and 6 women, carrying rifles, shotguns, and revolvers as they walked through the doors of the state capitol building on May 2nd of that year. This was decades before September 11th or the Oklahoma City bombing. And the protesters were, after all, legally allowed to have their weapons. They entered with their guns pointed at the ceiling. Behind them followed a horde of journalists they'd called to document the protest.
That's the key piece right there. Read that last sentence again.
Behind them followed a horde of journalists they'd called to document the protest.
Right.
As the rest of the group waited nearby, 6 Panthers entered the assembly chamber, where they found lawmakers mid-session. Some legislators reportedly saw the protesters and took cover under their desk.
I just want to say I'm weak at the ad libs. You are crazy. You are so crazy.
It was the last straw. Police finally ordered the protesters to leave the premises. The group maintained they were within their rights to be in the Capitol with their guns, but eventually they exited peacefully. Outside, Seal delivered the Black Panther executive mandate before a crush of reporters. This section of remarks, reprinted in Hugh Pearson's The Shadow of the Panther, still resonates today. Scroll down a little bit.
Somebody else want to read the quote, or
I'll read that. I want to read that. I got the voice for it.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm warmed
Go
up.
ahead.
Hey, people.
Go ahead.
Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned, demonstrated,
Oh, he is
and
ready.
everything else to get the racist power structure of America to right the wrongs which have historically been perpetrated against black people. God damn, we still saying that shit. Anyway, all of these efforts have been answered by more repression, deceit, and hypocrisy. Voting for Herschel Walker. As the aggression of the racist American government escalates in Vietnam, the police agencies of America escalate the oppression of black people throughout the ghettos of America. Vicious police dog, cattle prods, and increased patrols have become familiar sights in black communities. Gotta keep them under control. City Hall turns a deaf ear to the pleas of black people for relief from this increasing terror. Damn, that sounds familiar. Shortly after Seal finished, police arrested the group on felony charges of conspiracy to disrupt a legislative session. Seal accused them of manufacturing trumped-up charges, but the protesters would later plead guilty to lesser misdemeanors. Caveat, hold on. A lot of those charges were actually dropped. So the lesser misdemeanors were the charges that remained, but the more serious charges were dropped. because it was bullshit. Anyway, Mulford's legislation, which became known as the Panthers Bill, passed with the support of the passed with the support of the National Rifle Association. Let me say that again. Mulford's legislation, which became known as the Panthers Bill, passed with the support of the National Rifle Association.
Yeah, and here, hold on, because this paragraph is so important. Anna, read that
Yes.
sentence for us, just so the people listen. Mulford's that he just read, so that people pay attention.
Sure. Mulford's legislation, which became known as the quote Panthers Bill, passed with the support of the National Rifle Association, the NRA, which apparently believed that the whole good guy with a gun thing didn't apply to black people. California Governor Ronald Reagan, who would later campaign for president as a steadfast defender of the Second Amendment, signed the bill into law. It's pretty
You
fascinating.
don't say. Haas, you may continue.
Only when it's black people.
Yeah.
Or whoever wants to continue can continue. You guys can read as you want.
Lauren, do you want to take a
Yeah.
Although the May 2nd demonstration failed to sway lawmakers into voting against the Mumford Act, and may have convinced some of them that such measure was necessary, it did succeed in making the Black Panthers front page news. Headlines of evocative photos of armed black protesters, many wearing berets, bomber jackets, and dark sunglasses, walking the halls of the California Capitol. And the American public's response to that imagery reflected a nation deeply divided on the issue of race. On one hand, such a defiant demonstration of black power served as recruitment fodder for the Black Panther Party, which had previously only been operating in the Bay Area. It grew in size and influence, opening branches in a number of major cities, building a presence on college campuses, and ultimately surging to as many as 5,000 members across 49 local chapters in 1969. The party even attracted a number of radical-leaning white supporters, many of whom were moved. Wow, okay, I see you, Dutch. No, the party even attracted a number of radical-leaning white supporters, many of whom were moved by the Black Panthers' lesser-remembered efforts like free breakfast for children in black neighborhoods, drug and alcohol abuse awareness courses, community health and consumer classes, and a variety of other programs focused on the health and wellness of their communities.
Again, I think people need to pay attention. Anna, could you please repeat that last sentence?
Sure.
Actually, it's the whole paragraph, but whatever.
It's funny because it is one long sentence that looks like a paragraph. Yeah. The party even attracted a number of radical-leaning white supporters. Many
Radical.
Radical, very radical. The radical-leaning white supporters, many of whom were moved by the Black Panthers' lesser-remembered efforts like free breakfast for children in black neighborhoods, drug and alcohol abuse awareness courses, community health and consumer classes, and a variety of other programs focused on the health and wellness of their communities.
Pause. Isn't it funny that free food, alcohol and drug awareness and things like that is when it's directed for the black community is considered, supporters of that are considered radical.
Yeah.
But it's like, why would they want to support poor black kids being fed? Why would they want to support helping black alcoholics and drug addicts get help? God damn it, that's radical thinking. Wow.
Well, it's quite radical in today's
paragraphs here.
day and age to think that a woman should have control of her own vagina.
Radical.
So, because if you get raped, if the baby didn't want to be here, they would simply just not come.
Yeah, the body just shuts that shit down.
It has a whole way of shutting that down.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's all type of radical is just relative.
Yeah. I mean, fuck a physiological response if you get, there's any arousal.
If God had intended that baby not to be born, he never would have let that rape happen.
That's right, because the Lord don't make no mistakes.
True.
Yeah. A couple more paragraphs here, and then this will be it. So,
but it was clear from the moment the Black Panthers stepped inside the California Capitol that the nuances of the protest and of Seal's message weren't going to be understood by much of white America. The local media's initial portrayal of the brief occupation as an invasion would lay the groundwork for the enduring narrative of the Black Panthers first and foremost as a militant anti-white movement.
And then for those of you on the audio, there's a picture of the newspaper clipping here.
Capitol is invaded.
Yeah, Capitol is invaded in huge, like Washington or National Enquirer print.
Right.
State police had to halt an armed Negro band. Like Tony.
It was NWA.
It was Tony was there. It was an event for the ages.
Capitol is invaded.
Historic event.
State police halt armed Negro band, the Ghetto Boys.
Bushwick Bill was holding a squirt gun.
You gotta say it in the news voice of the era. Capitol invaded. Press corps draws ire of legislator.
And then 11 MiGs are destroyed by U.S. jets as you get
down the page.
So this is there's a couple more paragraphs here. Whoever would like to read these, and then we'll talk about.
In August 1967, FBI director and avid crossdresser J. Edgar Hoover took steps to ensure.
I hate Haas. I really hate Haas. I really.
He was though. Damn.
Took steps.
People don't want to talk about that.
No, of course not. That public support for the Black Panthers will remain marginal. In a memorandum just months after the armed protest, he deemed the group a black nationalist hate type organization, much like the Black Lives Matter movement has been labeled today, to be neutralized by COINTELPRO, a controversial initiative, not at the time, that notoriously skirted the law in its attempts to subvert any movement that Hoover saw as a potential source of civil disorder, like sleeping in your bed in your apartment building and being shot to death by the cops. Anyway,
he was sleeping very aggressively.
Yeah,
just as
snoring. Like about 8 Black Panthers knocked out in their bed. Anyway, a 2012 report further uncovered the extent of the agency's activity, revealing that an FBI informant, they made a movie about this, had actually provided the Black Panthers with weapons and training as early as 1967. As the Panthers' profile grew in the months and years following the California Capitol protest, so too did their troubles. Something that many of the Panthers themselves regarded as no coincidence. Just 2 months after Hoover put the Black Panthers in his sights, Newton was arrested and convicted of killing Oakland police officer John Fry, a hotly contested development and the first in a series of major nationwide controversies that engulfed the movement. Newton ultimately served 2 years of his sentence before his conviction was overturned in a set of appeals. The strength of the Black Panthers ebbed and flowed in the years leading up to the organization's dissolution in 1982. The party struggled to find a balance between its well-intentioned community efforts and its reliance on firepower and occasional violence, that's debatable, to bolster its hardened image. High-profile shootouts with police and arrests of members created further rifts in the group's leadership and helped cement the white establishment's depiction of Black Panthers as extremists.
Yep. So
imagine you following the laws, now you an extremist, and then y'all change the laws, and then we looking at them same laws, and now everybody should have a gun.
Yep.
Like, just make it make sense.
Yeah.
It
we should arm those teachers.
They like everybody can have a gun. But
You
not
get a
you.
gun. You get a
Not,
gun.
not
You get
you
a gun.
though.
Not
Not
your black
y'all.
Not your black ass.
And what would have happened?
Put your hand up to this piece of paper here and let's see something.
y-
You do not qualify for a gun.
what the Black Panthers said was what would have happened is exactly what happened. They passed these laws, and then the enforcement of the law was pinpointed,
Slanted.
laser focused on
Oh,
a
yeah.
certain amount of people. And people say, well, white people were arrested for that too. And that's true. They were in California arrested for that. But when you look at the population percentage, it was skewed massively.
Right.
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 Thank you for the message. Pass for fun. There's free girls in our city. I appreciate that. We're getting trolled, but love when you get trolled. And then like the other thing
not
that they
in
were
your
talking
city, in U City.
in U City, right?
Where's U City? I don't even know where that is.
It's right next to Me City,
Colorado.
And then the other thing that they were talking about was the because there was a lot of right wingers in a lot of places today that were, I don't know if they actually did, but there was an organization trying to get folks to monitor the polls with weapons. And they're like, oh, look, they're going to try to stop us. But don't you remember that in 2008, the Black Panthers did this holding like flashlights and batons during the 2008 election because there was a lot of pushback to the possible election of Barack Obama. And they were there to protect the polls. I'll let Haas talk about that one for a minute because I don't know every detail of that story, but I know enough to be dangerous. But I'll let you guys talk about. I'm sure you all know about the nuance of that.
Well, I just like think of like in context to what happened yesterday, right? Where people in Texas who have endured children being murdered in their school had an opportunity to vote and elected someone who was in the pocket of the NRA, and the NRA being not willing to engage in gun control in the only instance in its existence where they have been is to prevent Black people from actually exercising the right that they proclaim to support and be the whole organization existing around your right to bear arms, right? Unless you're a Black person, unless you were, exercising that freedom with the wrong skin tone.
Well, yeah, and in 2008, they said just the presence of Black Panther, and it wasn't the same Black Panther Party; it was the new Black Panther Party, and just their presence there, just a black guy holding a baton with sunglasses on and a beret, kept people from the polls.
Yeah, but you have like with Arizona, they had all these poll watchers and stuff, and armed, fatigued,
yeah, with their faces covered and all that.
Like, yeah.
Oh my God,
that Kerry Lake, and I didn't know that they actually showed because I haven't had time to look at that. I'm guessing they did because you guys probably saw it. But like Kerry Lake was encouraging that.
Oh, of course he was.
Trump was encouraging it. He said it in the debate in 2020. Yeah. Proud Boys, stand back, stand by.
Stand back and stand by, baby. We're going to white this thing up. Not light this thing up. We're going to white it up. Yeah.
So I would just like to get you guys' thoughts on like what, because a lot of people try to conflate this into January 6th. That's obviously like,
I didn't see any shit on the walls.
One of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. Right? Like look. I don't agree.
Walk out with laptops. I didn't see them walk out with anything.
No, they didn't pee on the podium.
Somebody was carrying a dace. They was carrying a podium out. I didn't see any of that. Okay.
Look, I don't agree with, as it so happens, I don't agree with the Black Panthers' position on guns. They hold a position on guns that I don't believe is
Which Black Panthers, the new Black Panthers, or
the original Black Panthers. I don't agree with their interpretation of the Second Amendment, but their interpretation of the Second Amendment is what the Supreme Court's said was that, at least at the time, now it's even more extreme, right? So the Supreme Court eventually agreed with them. I think that interpretation is wrong. However, that has nothing to do with the fact that they were exercising a right that was the right at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And they went into the Capitol building to talk and to demonstrate with their guns pointed at the ceiling over something that we know historically is documented as happening. On January 6th, these nutcases ran in there because they thought something might have happened, or they believed something happened. Believing something happened, but believing something happened doesn't mean it's real.
Right.
Right. And it's a different type of belief, right? It's an insidious belief. It's like the difference between like me saying, I believe if I walk out of my house that my car is in the driveway, right? Because I've done it so many times that I have a reasonable expectation that my car is going to be out there, which is different than saying, I believe that on Neptune, unicorns exist. I've never been to Neptune. I don't know unicorns exist, but I think on that one place, unicorns exist.
But what if one of your friends kept telling you that unicorns exist on Neptune?
Then I would.
They never
them
been
to get
there
the mental
either.
health.
They never been there either. But they keep telling you.
You need
I'm
to call
telling you.
211.
I'm telling you, there's unicorns on Neptune, bro.
But they'll just tell you that they've seen them there and that everyone knows, and you're just stupid for not doing your own research.
People told him.
But
a lot of people are saying that there are unicorns.
But here's the interesting point. I believe that that most of the people who sieged the Capitol on January 6th, 2001 felt similar to the way that the Black Panthers felt when they went into the Capitol building.
How many of those people have
now hold on, let me finish. Let me finish this thought. But here's the difference. Not only was one fabricated and one real, but on top of that, this is the key difference when it comes to white people when we feel oppressed.
Oh shit.
Okay? So when you listen fucking good. Those of you out there who are white and thinking that I'm a radical leftist. The Emancipation Proclamation, slavery, 1619, Jim Crow, all this stuff happened over the course of hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And it took till 1967, and not since then, that a group of armed protesters went to a Capitol building to demand change. They did sit-downs, they did sit-ins, they did marches, they did all these things. There was an occasional, riot here and there. And they did all this stuff for hundreds of years, at least 250 at the time. Trump supporters, let's not forget, that election was on November 3rd. They sieged the Capitol on January 6th. They waited a whole 63 days of oppression before they had the exact same result.
Perceived oppression.
Perceived. I already had said it was perceived.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm reiterating for
63. It took them 63 days to boil over something they made up and not being listened to about it.
To the point where you would shit in your hand and rub that shit on the walls of the Capitol.
Yes, and I think that's profound.
That was so disgusting.
It is profound, and I think it's just
think of the acceleration of that has to But no, I can't take it for 63 days.
Hold on, and think about this. But we're supposed to be the incorrigibly violent ones. We're the ones who have no impulse control. But 63 days. And they're like climbing the walls. And
I'm sorry, 64 days. There's 31 days in December. I apologize.
Taking a piss. Throwing
They're not very good at edging.
No, they lose it.
That's funny. Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to like my belief of like a topic like, the folks that were like the Mitch McConnells, these like incrementalists who like for 49 years worked to overturn Roe. And they had that goal for 49 years. They were pushing this rock up the hill. And I think that like Trump supporters are folks that can't even have 64 days before they explode. So it's kind of like this situation, like looking at it now, where what is my thing is looking at what's the next thing going to be, because it's great to look at history and then look back, and even if we look at American history post Black Panthers, if we look at they dissolved in 1982, and other groups that rose from their shambles, like the movement on the East Coast, um,
They bombed them.
I was gonna say that was in Philadelphia, and I
Philadelphia.
actually had the well, it's unfortunate, but I'm licensed in Pennsylvania. When I was a part of the Pennsylvania Barristers Association, or Philly Barristers, which is the Black organization there, we had someone who was a part of that
Wow.
movement and was living in those apartments to speak to us at that time, and they were just talking about how like the houses were indiscriminately bombed. They barely got an
Can
apology.
you, Anna? Can you just tell us like what the story is, so we all are on
Yeah,
the
so I
same
hope
page?
I'm not telling it wrong. This is just kind of what I remember, because I know it's like it's such common knowledge in Philadelphia, especially among Black residents and other folks of color out there. But my understanding is basically that the Move group was basically, not similar to the Black Panthers, but just, a Black community-based organization that was for the advancement of Black folks, had other community organizations, programs, getting people organized and rallied to participate civically and, promote that kind of engagement. And as it always happens, the government did not agree with that. I mean, I'm sure I'm oversimplifying and glossing over a lot of details of this story. So please do look it up if you all have the chance. But my understanding is that basically government comes in, bombs these people at home. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like they were protesting, and not that that's a reason to bomb somebody, but they were at home, no way to escape, nowhere to go, like just bombed, and just as if it was a war zone. And then my understanding is that a lot of folks died. A lot of folks did not receive compensation for that, from the city of Philadelphia or otherwise.
So
And
what? Why? These
I
scofflaws
mean,
were being Black in apartments and had the nerve to want to
This
improve their
riffraff,
lot in
folks.
life.
yeah,
God
I'm
Hey,
not
look who's
even
image.
here.
sure.
Why
Let me
aren't
just
these
look it up real
people?
quick.
Why aren't these people happy with what we give them?
Yeah, okay. So here, let me just read this real quick, because I'm like, I really don't want to butcher this story just because we're talking about it. So here's from Wiki. The 1985 Move bombing was the destruction by the Philadelphia Police Department of 61 residential homes in the West Philadelphia Osage neighborhood during a standoff and firefight between the Move organization and the police. Two explosive
61.
devices Two explosive devices were dropped by a police helicopter on the bunker-like cubicle of the roof of the house that was occupied by Move, which caused a fire which the Philadelphia Police Department subsequently let burn out of control, destroying the 61 previously evacuated neighboring houses over 2 city blocks and leaving 250 people homeless. Six
God damn,
adults,
this
six
is too much
adults
CRT for me. I can't.
Yes, 6 adults and 5 children in the Move compound died in the incident, with 1 adult and 1 child surviving. And I believe that adult was the person who came to speak with us. She was a woman. Anywho, a lawsuit in federal court found that the city used excessive force and violated constitutional rights against unreasonable search and seizure. So in the aftermath, Mayor Good appointed an investigative commission called the Philadelphia Special Investigation Commission. Um, in a speech the following year, he said that he was made a surrogate. The person who was chaired it, which was William Brown. The Move Commission issued its report about a year later. They denounced the actions of the city government, stating that dropping a bomb on an occupied row house was unconscionable. Following the release of the Mayor Good made a formal public apology. No one from the city government was criminally charged in the attack. The only surviving adult MOVE member, Ramona Africa, refused to testify in court and was charged and convicted on charges of riot and conspiracy and served 7 years in prison. 3 lawsuits were filed against the city of Philadelphia as a result. Then there was a lawsuit appealing the judgment against the police and public officials, which was decided later by the courts, who said that the plaintiffs, aka the people suing the city, did not have a Fourth Amendment claim against the city because there was no seizure when the defendants dropped explosives in their buildings, and city officials and police officers had qualified immunity under Section 1983 of the United States Code, but the city did not have qualified immunity from liability despite its officials being exempt. In 1996, so that's almost 10 years later, a federal jury ordered the city to pay $1.5 million civil suit judgment to the survivor, Ramona Africa, who has spent 7 years in jail, and relatives of 2 people killed in the bombing. The jury found excessive force, constitutional violations, and Miss Africa was awarded $500,000 in compensatory damages, which is pain and suffering. In 1985, Philadelphia was given the sobriquet, the city that bombed itself. 2005, a federal judge presided over another civil trial, and over the MOVE bombing, a jury awarded those plaintiffs $12.8 million against the city of Philadelphia. And most recently, in November of 2020, the Philadelphia City Council approved a resolution to formally apologize for the MOVE bombing. And they also established an annual day for the city of observation, reflection, and recommitment on May 13th, which is the anniversary of the bombings.
Wow.
So that's how bad it was.